Okay, so imagine this. You're stuck outside and it's time to pray. You have everything you need to pray except a prayer mat. You have everything we discussed in the previous video, which was 5 things you need to pray outside, except a prayer mat to pray on. Now, what will you do? Assalamu alaikum Bliifians, you're watching Bliifee, the place to be for balancing your lifestyle with deen and dunya. Make sure to watch till the end because I'm going to tell you what you can do if you don't have any of these alternatives that we're going to discuss in this video. So let's get right into the 10 prayer mat alternatives you can use for when you need to pray in public. Number 1. A jacket. This is particularly good in winters because you have a jacket with you when it's cold outside. So when you need to pray and you don't have a prayer mat with you, just for a few minutes, all you need to do is take off your jacket and lay it down on the floor. Just make sure it's a little bit clean so that your jacket doesn't get dirty. It's best to use a jacket when you have a dry place and not a wet place with mud and stuff. I personally use a jacket when I'm praying on floors which may be a bit dusty or in a park on top of the grass. You may be cold for a few minutes, but that's just for a few minutes. If you have multiple jackets on when it's really cold, you can take off one of those jackets and use that instead of taking off all your jackets and still remain warm. But I highly recommend jackets because you always have them with you, especially in winters, and they're easy to take off and use if it's not very cold and if you can survive for a few minutes without your jacket. So the first prayer mat alternative we just discussed was a jacket. Before we move on to the second point, give this video a thumbs up and let's go. The second prayer mat alternative that I usually use and would highly recommend you to use as well are tissue papers. It doesn't matter if they get dirty because you're going to be throwing them out anyways, or reuse them for something else other than your face. So when you use a tissue, you could use 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 as well, depending on your circumstances. I use tissues on hard surfaces and not muddy surfaces because they can easily absorb and become wet, and it completely defies the purpose of using them in the first place. I usually have tissues with me when I'm going outside in my pocket, so I can use them whenever I like. But a tissue is not very hard to get if you are outside without a tissue. You can always get it from someone else. So even if you don't have a tissue, you can ask it from anybody else. Just one tissue is enough. You just want to make sure you're doing sujood on a clean place. So tissue for that particular purpose comes very handy. You can use more tissues if you want to make sure your hands remain clean after you pray, or you can even use more if you want your knees to stay clean as well when you go into sujood and when you're in the sitting position. Remember, a tissue is only for dry places. If I have a tissue, I don't use my jacket, but sometimes using a tissue on grass can be very pokey to your forehead when you're praying and distracting, so in that case, a soft jacket comes very handy. But the second alternative to prayer mats, which we just discussed, were tissues. The third prayer mat alternative is an extra shawl. Once again, it's very common to carry an extra shawl with you during winters, so that can come handy when you need to pray outside. Just like a jacket or a normal prayer mat, you lay it down on the floor and pray on it as normal. If it's summer, then you definitely wouldn't have an extra shawl with you, so in that case, what I use is my hat. The soft part of the hat which goes here is the part that I usually pray on by keeping it on the floor, just for my forehead for when I make sujood. But in the case of using a shawl to pray outside, there is a hadith on this, where it is mentioned that on hot days when it was really hard to put your forehead on the ground to pray on because of it being very hot, they would spread out their garments and prostrate on it. Now, I don't specifically know which garment is being referred to in this hadith, but I believe that along with a jacket, a shawl is the best thing you can use when you don't have an actual prayer mat to pray on when you're outside your home or without a masjid. So this was the third alternative to prayer mats for when you need to pray in public. The fourth alternative that you can use when you're outside are cardboard boxes. This is super easy to find in retail stores or if you work at a place with a lot of cardboard boxes. All you need to do is to get an empty cardboard box and flatten it out, lay it on the floor and pray on it as usual. In this case, if the cardboard box is very big, you can use it completely for your knees, your hands and your forehead, but if it's small, then your main priority would be for your forehead and hands. If you need to pray and you're near a shop, you can always ask to pray in that shop and ask them if they have any spare cardboard, which they don't need, and just use that to pray on. So that was number 4, cardboard boxes. Number 5, a clean handkerchief. So similar to tissues, handkerchiefs are something that we carry with us often, except that just like a tissue, a handkerchief is not disposable. Also, it is very easy for your handkerchief to get clean because you use it for other purposes. You need to make sure that you're praying on a clean handkerchief if you're going to be using that for praying on. So that was number 5, a clean handkerchief. Number 6, a plastic bag. I think that you can use plastic bags in all cases for when you don't have a prayer mat, even if it's muddy or wet or if it's not a dry surface. Just because plastic is water repellent and it does not pass the water through from one layer to the next. Also, plastic bags are easy to get from supermarkets, or you may even have an extra one in your bag. Although I understand that in terms of sustainability, plastic bags are not the best option, this is one way that using plastic bags as a prayer mat could be a way to reuse plastic bags. They're super easy to clean off if they get muddy or dirty, and you can use them more than once. You could get it from any shop or a supermarket if your supermarket still sells those. But if not, you can always keep one in your bag for emergency purposes for when you need to pray outside. A plastic bag is really easy to make it into a small ball and keep it into your bag or your pocket, and it's not even that hard to use. So I highly recommend a plastic bag if you have one, and recycle and reuse it in this way. So that was number 6, a plastic bag. Number 7, newspapers. If you're lucky enough to find a newspaper lying around somewhere, usually at bus stops or any other similar place where people leave newspapers, you can always use one big sheet from that and use it more than once if it does not get dirty or wet. All you have to do is lay it down and pray on it. You can also lay down more than one sheet of newspaper and pray on it by making a clean place not only for your forehead and hands, but also for your knees to kneel on. But if you can't find it from anywhere, I'm sure you can buy one from somewhere, such as a shop or a supermarket, and they're even more easily available and accessible than a plastic bag these days. So that was number 7, newspapers. Number 8, a towel. A towel comes very handy if you're going to be praying at a beach and you've taken a towel with you for when you were going to the beach. If a towel has not been used yet and it's clean, you can use it to pray on instead of directly praying on the sand at the beach. Also, if you're in a hotel, they have plenty of towels, which they might not be giving out for free, but you can always ask them if you can use one just for prayer purposes and you return it back to them. I mean, if you're in a hotel, you can always use a tissue paper or something else, but if they are happy to give you a towel, then why not? But yeah, a towel comes very handy when you're at a beach and you have a towel with you which you can use to pray on. So that was number 8, towels. Number 9, if you're in a park and you're having a picnic, you definitely have a foldable mat, just like the one I'm sitting on right now. Even if you're not having a picnic, but you can see someone else is having a picnic and they have a picnic mat, just ask them if you can share their prayer mat. Not prayer mat. Just ask them if you can share their picnic mat to pray on for like just 5 to 10 minutes. If they're not happy with you stepping on their picnic mat with your shoes on, all you can do is have your feet outside the picnic mat while wearing or while not wearing shoes, depending on your situation, and just use the picnic mat to pray on for your knees, your hands, and your forehead. But if you're in a park and you don't want to ask somebody who has a picnic mat, or you yourself do not have a picnic mat, and there are trees with big leaves, then you can use that big leaf to pray on as well, just like how you would use a tissue. So that was number 9, a picnic mat or big leaves. No, don't rain. Quickly, yeah. Number 10 is just praying on the ground directly with your scarf covering your forehead or having a prayer cap that covers your forehead. I know this does not protect your hands from getting dirty, but you can just wash them afterwards. The main thing is that you do sujood on a clean place. But you also have to ensure that wherever your hand is touching and your knees are touching are also clean. What I mean is, if it's dusty, it's fine. If it's muddy, it's fine. But if it has any impurities, that's not fine. Now, as I promised at the beginning of the video, I'll be telling you now what you can do if you don't have any of these prayer mat alternatives. If you're in an indoor place such as a hotel or an office or something like that, you could always pray on a carpeted area. You could pray directly on grass or sand because they're considered clean according to Islam. If it's muddy, I really recommend you look for a drier place. Otherwise, if you have very less time, then I would say go for it, pray on that muddy area and just clean off later on. There is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was praying and it started to rain and the place became muddy, so he still went on and prostrated on that, and the Sahabis reported and the Sahabi who narrated this hadith said that they saw mud on the forehead and the nose of the Prophet ﷺ after the prayer had finished. It is not important to have a prayer mat, but it is definitely recommended to have one because it ensures cleanliness, and it is even from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to pray on a mat. I know how hard situation can be when you need to pray and you're outside and you don't have anything clean to pray on. So just to avoid such a situation, definitely try to keep some of these things with you when you go outside and you think you might need to pray. Even if you think you might not have to pray, just keep them with you and they might come handy anyways. A plastic bag, tissues, a jacket, or even a pocket prayer mat can come very handy for when you don't have a prayer mat. Have a prayer mat specifically dedicated for praying outside. If you travel in a car very often, carry your prayer mat in the boot of your car so that you can take it out whenever you need to use it and put it back in that. Comment below any other alternatives you think can come handy for when you don't have a prayer mat to pray on, or something that you have used for when you needed to pray outside and you did not have a prayer mat. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe because it helps me make more videos for you. And until next time, live your beliefs and stay tuned to Bliifee. Number 1, a jacket. But I highly That was a very weird call. So good. I was wearing this jacket, guys, but it got very tight and I couldn't move my hands because of wearing 2 jackets, and so. Or you can ask it from any other person, even if it's a stranger. No. See if they will give it. No. Oh god, it's so cold. It's gonna rain. Oh.